Welcome back to the workshop. Now, I had a lot of fun making that Minecraft axe, so I figured I'd go with another video game. This time, I'm going to make it a functional knife, because we haven't done that on this channel yet. When you're starting out, I recommend using steel that's already been tempered, because then you don't have to heat treat. So, old saw blades and files are a very good route to go. I'm going to take this saw blade and turn it into this. Now, I've already drawn up my templates right here, and because Cloud's Buster Sword is so large, it would make for a very heavy project making it to scale. So I'm going to take it and make a smaller knife, and I'm going to make a usable one. Let's get cutting the template and getting it on our steel. Now when you do your template, all you need is to hold it down with some magnets and get something to mark it with. You could use bluing compound, or you could spray paint on there, and then that would reveal your form. I just use a regular broad tip permanent marker. It's plenty enough for me to see, and it stays on there just fine. So you don't have to be any kind of graceful to do this, just enough to darken it. And there, it's on the steel. Now, I don't really have the setup in here to do any of the cutting, so I'm going to take this outdoors. Don't really have a very good setup to record it. I'm just going to take an angle grinder with a metal cutting bit and just cut around this perimeter, making sure not to glue the steel, because that will take away the temper. Now that we've got our basic shape, it's up to shaping it. See, I got a little bit of the curve left in here, but I didn't go all the way up to my mark, so I'm going to go through and clean up those edges. And again, remember, you always want to dip it in water so you don't end up bluing the steel, because that will take away the temper, and then you'll end up having to heat treat it. If worse comes to worse, I do have a forge, I can heat treat it, but we're going to try and do this without doing that. Now that I got a lot of that cleaned up, I'm going to switch over to using a hand file. So far, no bluing of the steel, which is a good sign. I end up moving to the hand file to reduce the risk of bluing the steel. So we're going to do that right now in my trusty vise here. Alright, now that everything is straightened out, it's time for maybe this little bit here. I'm going to end up having to make this thinner, but for now I'm going to establish where the bevels are going to be. Now he's got a tip here and a tip right up here, so I'm going to have to establish that on two angles. And then he's got those embellishments that are along the edge of the blade on the back side. So we're going to go ahead and mark those out and then start shaping and cutting those holes. Now I've gone out and marked where I need to drill, right here and here for the two embellishments, right up here. And then I've also marked out where the angle of my bevel is going to be. Alright, now that we got those holes established, we're going to start working on the bevel. You might be able to tell right about here. There's a line there, a line up here. That's where I've established where the bevel is going to be. As you can see, I've marked out where my bevel is going to end up. I've also marked the center line across the edge here. This here is my bevel jig. It can also be used as a honing jig. You just got to change out the attachment with a honing stone or a diamond plate. This helps guide you to make even strokes all the way across. The idea is I set it at the highest that it is, get it down to my center line, and then slowly lower it to get the angle. And in lowering it, it'll bring me back toward the line that I'm aiming for. Once I get it set on this side, I'll use that line to do the opposite side so that it's even. And get my gloves on. Safety first when you're metalworking. Alright, now we got that established. Flip it over and do the other side. Alright, now that I got my bevel all established, I can go ahead and start polishing and sharpening this. I have my blade prepped and ready to start polishing. Much like you would do with wood, you want to work in one direction. The steel is less forgiving than wood is, so if you start drifting in any other direction, those marks will be left on the blade in your final polishing. I'm going to start with 100 grit. There were some accents in the blade around the circles here and right up until about this part of the blade. So I'm going to go with just the 100 for now and try and etch those into my blade, and then we'll go back and do the final polish. Now that that's got most of the scratches out, I'm going to flip it over and do the other side. And when I come back, I'm going to try and etch those markings into the blade, and then we'll go ahead and polish it. I've gone ahead and tried one. Go ahead and do these accents. I'm just taking a piece of hardwood that I've flattened on one end, clamping it down to the marks that I'm putting on here, and then I'm running this very thin bit on my Dremel across it to make the indents for all that extra accent on the blade. So I'm going to go ahead and do all that, and then we'll flip it up, do the other side, which I've also prepared, and then we'll be ready for polishing. Alright, well, we got the etching in the blade on both sides here. Got to clean it up a little bit. Fortunately, I've run out of time this week, so this is going to be a two-part video. I will polish this up the rest of the way, and then we'll start working on the guard and the handle. And I've got some pretty good ideas of how I'm going to do that. As always, like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you next week. Bye.